Earlier this year I did a video talking about how do people get so much knitting done, and also why do some people get upset about the fact that some people manage to do a lot of knitting and that some people don't. I did a video about this earlier this year, which I'll link below if you haven't watched it. But today I thought I would share my tips for how you can get more knitting done. So it's not necessarily about knitting faster, although obviously that will help, but just how you can fit more knitting into your life and some of my tips for how I've managed to make my knitting more efficient. And I'm not talking about knitting style here. I'm talking about how I fit it into my day and what projects I focus on. But I also want to say that productivity in knitting isn't necessarily the goal. As long as you enjoy your knitting and you knit what you want to and what you enjoy and you like the end result, that's the main thing. So don't focus just on how much knitting you can get done. So if you feel you're not knitting or crocheting as much as you'd like to, or anything else really fit into your life, maybe some of the tips I share in this video might help you. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you're new here, my name is Anniken. I design knitting patterns. I teach knitting workshops online and in person, and I sell yarn through my website, YarnAddict.co.uk. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a plug. I knit the Continental style, and I don't think it matters how you knit. Whichever style you prefer is absolutely fine. If you're happy with the way you knit, then that's fine. Quite often when I talk about Continental knitting, I get accused of saying that Continental knitting is the best way of knitting, or that it will make you faster, and some people don't like that. But the truth is that for most knitters, Continental knitting is a faster way of knitting than the English style of knitting. So unless you're really fast English style, Continental knitting is quite often quicker. Doesn't mean you have to change to Continental knitting. If you're happy with the way you knit and the speed you knit at, that's fine. But if you fancy trying another way of knitting, I do have an online Continental knitting course where I teach you how to knit Continental style, purl Continental style, and purl Norwegian style. The two styles are slightly different. And we also cover how to knit lace and cables and different stitch patterns in Continental style, and I also do like a troubleshooting section where I talk about some of the problems I found that people have in my in-person workshops. And I've been teaching Continental knitting for nearly 20 years now. It's a long time. So if you're interested in that, you can go to my website, click on workshops and online courses, and you can find all my online courses there. So regardless of how you knit, there are ways that you can fit more knitting into your day, or make the knitting time you have more focused and efficient. So one of those things is focus on fewer projects. I used to have quite a lot of projects on the go, and I would flick between them, but I never felt like I made much progress. It felt frustrating because each time I picked up a new project, I may not have worked on that for a few days or a few weeks. So I then end up having to look at my knitting, work out where I was, look at the pattern, work out where I was, and then get back into it again. Whereas if I picked up a project I worked on earlier that day or the day before, I could just pick it up and usually remember where I was and not waste several minutes or half an hour working out where I was and what I was doing and what I'm supposed to be doing next. Focusing on fewer projects is a good idea because you spend less time working out where you are, so you don't waste as much time trying to work out where you are and what you were doing. You can just pick up your knitting and get on with it. At the moment I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 projects on the needles, so I don't always do what I preach, but one of those is for a magazine deadline, so I have to work on that a little bit every day. I could just focus on that till I got it done, but I also want to work on some of my other projects. I'm working on that a little bit every day. I always have a sock project or another small project on the needles that I can just grab and take out with me. It'll be something easy that I can knit on anywhere, that I can knit on while I'm chatting to people. I can knit in the car if I'm not driving, things like that. And usually socks, sometimes it's a hat or something else that's fairly easy and usually will fit into a fairly small project bag. So I can either fit it in my handbag or just clip it to my handbag. So it's easy to take out and about with me. And I normally take that out and about with me when we're going out for the day. If I'm going somewhere for an appointment where I know I might end up waiting for a long time, I might take it with me. So any small project I can just grab, pick up, knit a few rows or rounds, and then put it back again without having to think about it too much. So they are the kind of projects I tend to take out and about with me. So normally I try and have a project I can focus on a bit more at home, and an easy project I can just grab and go and take out and about with me. At the moment, I also have 2 colourwork projects on the go, and I've actually put one of those on hold because I'm not making much progress on either of those. So I've put one of those on hold. Problem is, I can't do colourwork, as in stranded colourwork or fair isle knitting, all the time because it does aggravate my neck and my shoulders because I have to look at it more, and when I look down it aggravates an old neck injury I have. So I can't knit colour work all the time. If I have a big colour work project that I do knit on all the time, I have to be very careful to make sure I take more frequent breaks so I don't end up with a lot more neck pain than usual. So if I have a colourwork project on the go, I tend to have something else on the go as well. One of my colourwork projects I put on hold at the moment because I can't juggle 2 of them. And then I also have a very easy sweater on at the moment, which is just stocking stitch, and that's another project I try and work on. So after I worked on my deadline project, I will then try and work on my sweater project, and that is also fairly easy, and at the moment it's quite small, so that can also be a mobile out and about project that I take with me. I normally have one priority project that I want to work on as much as possible to finish, and I may have 1 or 2 kind of side projects or extra projects. But I do find that I get more done if I focus on 1 or 2 main projects, because I waste less time working out where I am every time I pick it up. I can just pick it up, knit a few rows, put it back down again, pick it up later, knit a few rows again. Try and knit frequently as you can fit it into your day. If you want to pick up your knitting once a week, then you're going to spend quite a lot of time when you first pick up your knitting trying to work out where you are and what you need to do next. If you pick up your knitting more frequently, especially if you have fewer projects on the go, then you're more likely to just be able to pick it up and start knitting straight away, because you'll probably remember where you were if you've knitted on it earlier that day or the day before. I try and knit every time I sit down. So I used to knit quite a lot first thing in the morning. I don't do that anymore because I do other things first thing in the morning. My Duolingo lessons, for example, and then I either work out or I start work earlier. And then mid-morning I take a break, I walk the dog, and then I come in and I sit down and knit. Now sometimes I have a bit of a habit of picking up my phone and starting to scroll through social media, which means that half an hour, 45 minutes that I normally allow myself to knit mid-morning is cut down. So sometimes I may just get like 20 minutes knitting done, and then I feel guilty because I think, well, I've wasted that precious knitting time scrolling through social media. Sometimes there are social media stuff I have to do because it's related to my business, but sometimes I will just be doom scrolling, and that's not a good idea. So think about what you do when you sit down. Do you automatically pick up your phone, scroll through social media, play games, or just mindlessly check stuff on your phone? Try and cut down on the distraction by your phone by switching off your notifications. So the only notifications I have on my phone are text messages, WhatsApp messages, my bank account, and PayPal, because it gives me a bit of a boost when I see people buying my patterns or from my website. Getting those PayPal notifications is quite a nice confidence boost. So I do leave those switched on, but I have no email notifications on my phone because most of my emails are business related, and I don't necessarily want to have to deal with that in the evenings and weekends. I deal with it when I'm on my computer in my office, or I would check my email at specific times during the day to see, especially if I'm waiting for something. So I might check it at lunchtime and again late afternoon, just to make sure there isn't anything I have to deal with quickly. But I don't normally use my phone very much for emails. So when I sit down, I try and be disciplined enough to pick up my knitting. Now, obviously, my situation is a little bit different because knitting is my job, so I do have to spend reasonable amount every day knitting, or I am less productive in my job. Obviously, if you want to pick up your phone and play games or scroll social media or whatever, and that's what you want to do, then do that. but do it without feeling guilty that you should be knitting. If your goal is to fit more knitting or crochet or something else into your life, reading for example, then try and be disciplined to not pick up your phone and do something else and do what you plan to do. Maybe put your phone somewhere else, leave it in the kitchen if you're sitting in the lounge for example, or turn off the sound so you're not hearing all those notifications. All my social media notifications are off, I think. So I have to log in, I have to go onto each app to see any notifications, and that stops me being distracted by it. I also have the sound off on my phone almost all the time. Sometimes if I'm expecting a phone call, I might turn the sound on or turn the vibration on, but it's rare for me to have the sound on my phone. So if somebody calls me, it will come through to my smartwatch and I'll see it, but like if somebody calls me on WhatsApp, it doesn't come through to my watch for some reason, so I usually miss it unless I happen to be looking at my phone, which I know frustrates my mother because that's how she contacts me most of the time. But it does mean that I get less distracted because my phone's not constantly beeping all the time like it used to. So try and get rid of those distractions that may stop you from doing what you want to do, whether that's knitting, reading, or whatever. Try and knit more often, even if it's just for a few minutes. So if you are waiting for the kettle to boil, maybe have an easy project you can just pick up and do a couple of rows on, something you can just pick up and knit without having to think about where you are. So for example, my sock project would be good for that. I don't actually drink hot drinks, I don't wait for the kettle to boil at all, but if that's something you have to do frequently, then maybe have a project you can just pick up and knit. If you're cooking dinner, instead of standing in the kitchen and waiting for stuff to happen, maybe just put a timer on or something and then go and do some knitting. So I used to prepare all the stuff to cook and then turn it on, and then I go and sit in the lounge and knit, and I pop into the kitchen every so often and check on things, so that I was using that time to knit. I wasn't standing in the kitchen while I was waiting for stuff to happen to my cooking. Obviously, some people might use that time to do some cleaning in the kitchen, load or unload a dishwasher, that kind of thing. And I think that's probably also a good use of your time. My problem is also because of back problems. I can't stand for long periods at a time. So going to sit and knit made me kind of go and sit down and save my back a little bit. If you're having a coffee or a drink, pick up your knitting. If you are chatting on the phone, can you use earbuds? If you're using a mobile phone, can you use earbuds or put your phone on speakerphone if you're at home? Don't put your phone on speakerphone in public because it's so frustrating when people have their phones on speakerphone in public. But can you make yourself hands-free so you can knit while you're chatting on the phone? I frequently do that because I find it frustrating to hold my phone. With my parents, I usually do video calls, so I will quite often come up here so I can put my phone in my phone holder that I use for filming, and then I can sit and knit while I'm chatting. Or if I'm talking to them in the lounge, I will normally prop my phone up on the side of my chair so I can knit, but then I have the phone at me at like a weird angle, so it looks like I've got like a massive double chin, and it's not a very flattering angle. But it's my parents, they know what I look like, so I'm not that bothered about it. But if I was talking to somebody else on video call, I would probably come up here and click my phone in so that I can knit while I'm chatting to people. If you're doing that, try and knit something that you don't have to look at all the time. I do have a video that I recorded either last summer or the year before, I think, when I talk about knitting without looking. If I remember, I will link below, but if not, just search for it on my channel and you'll find it. If you have to call somewhere and you end up being on hold for a long time, like for example, if I was to call my doctor's surgery, chances are I would need to hold for anything from 10 minutes to half an hour. So I will quite often, I do while I'm working because I work from home, or I will knit while I'm on hold. So if you're ringing somewhere you know you're likely to be on hold, have your knitting ready so you can knit. You get less frustrated as well if you're knitting. If you're just sitting there waiting, it's easier to get really annoyed about the fact that they're not picking up your call. So have your knitting ready, or a book or something, and obviously make sure your phone's on speakerphone or you have earbuds in so you can hear it when they answer. If you're waiting to pick somebody up in a car, so if you've got kids to pick up from school, for example, or partners to pick up from work, anything like that, take your knitting with you so you can just knit a few rows of rounds while you're waiting. If you pick up somebody frequently, maybe keep a small project like a sock project in your car so you can just pick it up and knit when you have the chance. when my kids were at school, I used to take my knitting with me to like parents' evenings and stuff, and my kids didn't like it when I knitted at parents' evenings, but so I would mainly do it if they weren't with us. So if it was a meeting in the main hall, for example, they might sit at the front with their friends, and we might sit at the back, and I would sneakily knit a bit. Or if we were waiting to speak to specific teachers and they were running really late, I would sometimes do my knitting, and my daughters would complain because it was embarrassing. Can you knit in meetings? I think it depends on what kind of meeting it is, but it's a work meeting or a voluntary thing you're doing. If you're doing Zoom meetings or Teams meetings, you might be able to get away with knitting if you can keep your knitting in your lap, so it's not in the eye line of the camera and you don't have to look at it. A lot of people in meetings will sit down and write notes, and nobody bats an eyelid about that. Or they will sit and doodle. If I knit in a meeting, I'm probably more likely to listen and pay attention than if I'm doodling or writing notes. Sometimes I will write notes and knit in a meeting, but you have to look at the situation. If it's a work meeting, you might decide it's inappropriate. If it's a Zoom or Teams meeting, maybe you can do it if you can keep it that you're knitting out of sight and not look at it too often. And when you do look at it, you can just pretend you're writing notes or something. But I mean, I'm sure Zoom and Teams meetings, people are doing stuff on their phone and just pretending they're writing. So why can't you knit as long as you can keep it out of view of the camera so nobody knows what you're doing? In-person meetings are a bit more difficult. It depends on what it is. I used to knit at church meetings, and everyone were happy about that. Well, I'm sure there was some that weren't, but the people in charge didn't mind. I would probably not knit at like a professional meeting. If I had a work meeting, I probably wouldn't knit. Although any work meetings I would have now, I'm a knitter, so I might knit. But yeah, you just have to look at the situation and see what you feel is appropriate. But you could also ask the other people, do you mind if I knit? And if you can prove that you are paying attention, then I don't see why they should mind. Can you knit while watching different activities? So if you have kids or grandkids, so you take the swimming lessons, ballet lessons, football, whatever it is, can you knit while they're doing their activities? My kids used to do ballet lessons. I can't remember when they were really little and I used to stay on, whether I used to bring my knitting or not, or whether that was before I got back into knitting. As they got older, I used to drop them off and drive home or go and do other things and go back and pick them up. But I did used to knit while they were swimming, especially when they got old enough that I didn't have to go and help them get changed before and after. So I would just drop them off. They would go and get changed, have their swimming lessons, get changed again afterwards. So that would give me like an hour where I could knit. I mean, I sat by the window in the pool so I could watch them while I was knitting and chat with other mums while I was knitting. But I did used to get quite a lot of knitting done that way, especially if both of them had swimming lessons after each other. Then we could easily spend like an hour and a half, 2 hours at the pool. So I used to get quite a lot of knitting done that way. And finally, prioritise what's important to you. We all have the same number of hours in a day, but we all have different responsibilities. So if you have children or other caring responsibilities, or you have a job that takes up a certain number of hours a day, then you're probably going to have less time to knit than some other people who may not have those responsibilities. Also, if you're involved in a lot of other activities, you're going to have less time to knit. So be realistic about how much time you actually have. I went through a few years ago, before COVID started, I think, I actually spent a week where I tracked everything I did in Google Calendar. I like literally everything, like eat breakfast. I blocked out that time and color coded it so I could see it easily. Shower and get dressed, put my makeup on, work at my office, knit, walk the dog, lunch. I blocked everything out. Just to see how much time I was spending on everything, to see whether I was actually working the number of hours I thought I was working, and how much time things were taking me. And I found that really useful because I could then see what I was doing, whether there was something that was taking too much time, like was I spending an hour showering, getting dusting my hair and makeup? Could I cut that down to half an hour, 40 minutes, for example, things like that. So I found that quite useful to work out what I wanted to do with my time and where my hours were actually going. So think about how you spend your time. So I try and not go into town to run errands every day. Try not to shop every day. I try to do one main grocery shop trip a week. And then if I need to go to the post office or the pharmacy, I try and group those together because they're close to each other. Quite often I will do it after my Pilates class on a Wednesday morning because I have to drive through town anyway on the way home. So if I need to do anything, I will do it then, because then I can just stop and park up and do it. If I need any extra groceries, I will get that then. If I've got a haircut, for example, like I did earlier this week, I did a few other errands in town at the same time as my haircut. So I was, because I had to pay for parking anyway, so I was maximizing that time spent in town. So I try and plan things like that. Last time I had to pick up train tickets, for example, I planned it to pick them up on my way to a massage appointment because my massage appointment is just around the corner from the train station. So I try and plan things like that. So I'm not running errands and doing stuff like that every single day. And if I do need to run errands in town, for example, I will now quite often do them in the afternoon on my way to the gym. So I'll leave 15 minutes, half an hour early, go into town, do what I need to do, and then go straight to the gym. Just cutting down on things so that I'm not in and out of the house all the time, and I'm not running errands and shopping and things every single day. And think about that throughout your life. I mean, make a list of all the things you have to do in a day, all the things you think you have to do, and then look at that list and see, do you actually need to do all those things? Can somebody else do some of them? If you want to knit or read or crochet or sew or get fit or whatever it is you want to do, you've got to make time for it. Most of us can fit in the stuff we want to do. It's the stuff we're less keen on doing. For me, that's cleaning. Cleaning will always be at the bottom of my list, but sometimes you have to do it because otherwise your house is disgusting. So sometimes I have to prioritize that, and then it means I can't do something else. But I find that most of us, what we really want to do, we tend to find time to do. And if you keep complaining about saying I haven't got time to do something, either it's not that important to you, or you have too many other commitments and you need to look at whether you need all those commitments. Are there things that other people can do that you don't need to do? Or do you have all those commitments and there's nobody else who can do them? If you have caring responsibilities, children, things like that, and a job, then, those are the three things that really you have to do, and they should take priority. But also look at whether you can get somebody else to help you with some things, get a cleaner in to do some jobs, get someone to do your ironing, get somebody else in the house to cook once or twice a week, things like that. See where you can delegate and see what you really have to do. And if you find there are a certain amount of things you have to do, then you can't do everything, but most of us manage to do the things that we most want to do. So if you think, well, I'm not spending enough time knitting, is knitting actually important to you? Is that really where you want to spend your time on? Or would you rather be out in the garden, for example? Which is fine, but just be honest with yourself. Look at where you spend your time on and where you want to spend your time on, and see where you can change things to make things work for you better. I did just write a list for a week or two so you can see where your patterns are, or do it in Google Calendar like I did, because my phone's always in my pocket or my hand. So I found it easy to do it on Google Calendar, but you can do it in a notebook. It does help you get some clarity on what you're actually spending your time on, not just in terms of your spare time activities, but also maybe in terms of your work, whether you're not getting certain things done in your job. Like there are certain things I wasn't very good at doing in my job. They're actually quite important. So now I schedule those in my Google Calendar every month to make sure I get them done every month. And I don't get behind on them like I used to do. That is it for today. Let me know how good you are at doing what you want to do. Are there things you'd like to do more of, but you just don't seem to be able to fit into your life? Are you honest about whether or not you really can't fit it into your life, or do you have responsibilities that means that they have to take priority and you can't fit as many hobbies into your life as you'd like to? Work and caring responsibilities obviously take priority, and if you have young children or grandchildren that you help look after, or disabled children or adult children or elderly relatives you look after, that does take up a lot of time. So you have to be kind to yourself as well, and remember not to compare yourself to other people. We all have different amounts of energy levels, we have different health problems. I quite often compare myself to people who do the same job as me, who don't have health problems, and what they can do and what I can do. And I have to be realistic, because I have chronic pain, I have certain health problems, and that means I can't do everything I would like to do. So I have to be realistic about that, but sometimes it is easy to forget that. And I'm trying to remind myself of that more regularly. One of my goals this year is to spend less time comparing myself to others, because I spent too much time doing that last year. So let me know, have you managed to find more time for the things you want to do? Are there things you'd like to do more of that you can't seem to find the time for? Let me know if anything in this video has helped you or made you think about things differently, or if you have any other advice to add. I'm really interested in reading your comments. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. And I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.